Alright, what is going on YouTube? Um, got some more Fallout New Vegas. Well, I guess it kind of ties into the last one. So I'm going to be reading some more, like I mentioned in my last video about Arsenius, that I would be going through some of his sayings. I'm going to be doing that today. So I printed out, um, it's 44 sayings, but I'm not going through all 44. So don't clutch your pearls. And majority of I think it's the same like list. There isn't too much on St Arsenius out there, but I want to say they're the same sayings that are in a specific video about him um that I need to find. It's like a 30 something minute video. Is that even right? That I could share. Um, no. Yeah, Saint on Go Orthodoxy YouTube channel, St Arsenius, Sayings of the Desert Fathers. I have it saved to my phone, but I'm not going to be playing that because it's a, well, 30 something minutes. But I believe it's the same list. I found a list on the internet, and I printed it out. And so I'm just going to go through it kind of one list at a time, or not one saying at a time, but the parts that I highlighted. Um, For one, it's having withdrawn to the solitary life, he made the same prayer again. Okay, well let me start. Let me start over because it's already out of context. While still living in the palace, Abba Arsenius prayed to God in these words: "Lord, lead me in the way of salvation." And a voice came saying to him, "Arsenius, flee from men, and you will be saved." Right? Having withdrawn to the solitary life, he made the same prayer again, and he heard a voice saying to him, "Arsenios, flee, be silent, pray always, for these are the source of sinlessness." Jeez, bro, I can't even talk today. Which is definitely some powerful stuff, right? The Bible tells us, pray always, and slow to speak, but taking it deeper, God telling, be silent, which I'm sure is impossible for most of us, right? And so he went out to and built a cell in the desert, and that's where he lived. And I'm not sure if, anybody, I mean, not everybody's called for that life, right? So I can't be like, oh, we all need to do that. But that is definitely a strong way to keep yourself from sinning, I would say, is to live out in the desert and, pray about such a thing. If maybe if you feel like that's your calling, not feel like, but it could be your calling, right? And that's something you should pray on, um, especially if you're trying to achieve the kingdom of heaven, right? If you're trying to receive salvation at the end of life, this life, earthly life, maybe a cell in the desert is your calling. And I said it in the first video about Arsenius, is sometimes I want to do that, right? I feel that, like, man, if I could just get away from people and these things, not that ends all the problems, because in this, Arsenius definitely still experience demonic attacks. So, just because you're out in the desert doesn't mean the demons leave you alone, right? And so the next one, uh, it was said of him that just as none in the palace had worn more splendid garments than he when he lived there, so no one in the church wore such poor clothing, because he was a teacher to the emperor's children, right? That's mentioned in the last video. And of course, you can always, I encourage anyone to look up the lives of the saints, and find ones you connect with. And Arsenius, he was a teacher to the um, yeah, sons of the emperor, lived in the palace, but then he became a poor dressing or lowly garment wearing member of the church. And I definitely relate to that. In my old life, it was all about having fly fits and wearing my J's and the jeans and my dad. I loved the jackets, right? I love jackets, different denim jackets and funky jackets, and so I understand. And then coming into being a Christian man now, having to let that go by choice and by discipline and through sacrifice. And I definitely have a much simpler wardrobe, right? And I wear, only a handful of shoes and such. And I'm not trying to gas myself. That would be wrong, but just not focusing on the outer appearance as much as I used to. And because back then it was about getting the ladies right, looking fly for the chicks, and having to really give that up. I need to. I'm like almost at the end of Fallout New Vegas, to be honest. Okay, on to it. Arsenius said to him, "We indeed get nothing from our secular education, but these Egyptian peasants acquire the virtues by hard work." Um, Saying that you not work for salvation, right, but work for the virtues. And of course, from Scripture, if a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat, right? And so I would say that the bread of life, the individuals who are working and receiving the virtues are eating the bread of life. So it still kind of applies that you don't work, you don't eat. I'm playing on what's it called? I believe it's hardcore mode, and so I have to worry about food and water, and the ammo has weight, so I have to get rid of ammo in order to. I probably wouldn't play it like this again. It makes it much more difficult. Alrighty. And another one, I have indeed been taught Latin and Greek, but I do not know even the alphabet of this peasant. By the way, I'm not reading all of these like fully or in context, so I definitely encourage checking it out yourself with just specific pieces that I connect with that I want to share. So the alphabet of the peasant, which I think is deep, and I wrote it down on a sticky here on my computer because I want to explore that more. And I'm not a priest, so I can't do like homilies and stuff, but I feel like that's a strong, like, like a good subject topic to do a homily on, whatever, the alphabet of the peasant means to you, right? Oh, I have to get a missile. Oh yeah, I definitely don't have a lot of those, player. Ooh. Okay. And then alphabet of the peasant. Like I even feel like that's like a cool. That'd be cool. That's a cool like platform name, like YouTube channel name or something like that. If anyone wants to take that and run with it, thank Arsenius, right? Don't thank me. Um, Later on, if you hear Arsenios is anywhere, do not go there. And that's actually, I feel like is a big statement. Where Christ says, if you hear Christ is um, in the desert or over here or over there, don't go, right? And so here Arsenios is saying basically the same thing, which I believe, it shows our what is meant to be our connection to Christ. Being one with Christ is actually, kind of experiencing the things that he either experienced. I mean, it says take up our cross, same as Christ did, right? But also, cool. Um, and then our reading today was at a daily scripture reading. One of them was out of Acts chapter 9, verse 9, and it says it's when when the Lord is talking to Ananias about Paul, and he says that he will bear the name of Christ, which I thought was interesting. It's not just, he will suffer for my name's sake, but he will bear my name. And what I gotta do? I follow? Um, I don't know what that's about. It will bear his name, right? And he even says, Christ said, whoever rejects you rejects me, right? And that I think that's a serious deal. Um, let's go get to hashtag healer. But yeah, whoever rejects us, the disciples of Christ, rejects Christ. So it still goes back to that oneness with yeah. If you hear Arsenius is anywhere, do not go there. Another time, the archbishop, intending to come to see him, sent someone to see if the old man would receive him. Arsenius told him, "If you come, I shall receive you. But if I receive you, I receive everyone, and therefore I shall no longer live here." Hearing that, the archbishop said, "If I drive him away by going to him, I shall not go any more." And when I thought that was I put the spiritual presence versus being in his presence, the presence of Arsenios. Um, you know, the archbishop is saying, I'd rather find comfort in knowing Arsenios is over there than going to see Arsenius and driving him away, and then we can't go to him anymore. And I think that's a powerful statement, like I said, about someone's spiritual presence, the spirit, the connection, right, versus actually having to be there. And it's parallel to Christ. Christ isn't incarnated walking the earth, but we still feel his presence and connect with his spiritual presence. Um, yeah. Uh, he also said, if we seek God, he will show himself to us, and if we keep him, he will remain close to us. That's similar to Deuteronomy, never leave thee nor forsake thee. And I forget where else that is in the scriptures, but I wrote that down. And then this next one I thought was powerful. Someone said to Abba Arsenios, "My thoughts trouble me, saying, you can neither fast nor work. At least go and visit the sick, for that is also charity." But the old man, recognizing the suggestions of the demons, said to him, "Go, eat, drink, sleep, do no work, only do not leave your cell." For he knew that steadfastness in the cell keeps a monk in the right way. And I thought that was crazy. It's similar to the thoughts of Peter when Peter doesn't want Christ to get um, to suffer. He thinks that those good feelings are of God, but they're not. They're actually of Satan. So when then um, the demons are saying, just go visit the sick, that's also charity. Arsenius grabs that, or can tell that that's not of God, right? That it's stuff to do these other things, or do this instead, right? That something that not necessarily all the, maybe good feelings that we have are of God, right? Some of them maybe need to be vetted by an elder. Abba Mark said to Abba Arsenius, "Why do you avoid us?" The old man said to him, "God knows that I love you, but I cannot live with God and with men. The thousands and 10,000s of the heavenly hosts have but one will, while men have many. So I cannot leave God to be with men. I cannot leave God to be with men," which goes back up to the beginning. How shall I be saved? Flee from men, and you will be saved. Forgive me, I'm like fighting a little coldy cold situation. What's that? Goodbye. Goodbye. Let's see what we got here. Scrap metal. What? Why did I play Matchmaker? That's crazy. Jack's love story. What's that about? Jack let me know there is a girl he's interested in at Crimson Caravan. He knows she has red hair, but that is all he knows. He'd like me to talk to her. Okay, Crimson Caravan. Crimson Caravan. I gotta Google what that is. Google. Google Toodle. Is that it? No. Sniper's Nest. It's about time for me to get the DLC. Boom. Okay. So we're gonna check out this love story situation. Alright. Okay. I just wrote not much sleep. Arsenius didn't sleep much, right? Which is pretty crazy. I've actually been kind of, what I guess maybe wondering about that myself recently. Checking out my own sleep schedule. Like, what if I sleep too much? Or exploring sleeping less, which is not for everyone, but so I'm kind of paraphrase this one. So a girl wanted to go visit Arsenius, but he didn't want to. And she said, "May it please the Lord, I shall not let anyone come here, but pray for me and remember me always." But he answered her, "I pray God to remove remembrance of you from my heart." Pretty savage, but it is what it is. And then, oh, okay. So then she leaves and gets sick. And then she talks to an archbishop, and he says, "Do you not realize that you are a woman, and that it is through women that the enemy wars against the saints?" Which is, yeah, for one, it's how Satan got to um, Adam, was through the woman. And I try not to tell lies in the game. Um, what's it called? Yeah, so it is through women that the enemy wars against the saints, and I definitely can attest to that. You know what I mean? Even, and maybe this is too much transparency, but even, being a married man, it's how my first marriage uh, fell apart, and it's still a tool the enemy's trying to use today with this marriage is through women. Moving on, it was also said of him that on Saturday evenings, preparing for the glory of Sunday, he would turn his back on the sun and stretched out his hands in prayer towards the heavens, till once again the sun shone on his face. Then he would sit down. And that is some serious prayer, right? Doesn't need much delving into, but not everyone is capable of praying at that level, right? Even me, I pray how I pray, but it's definitely not deep like that. So everyone must be watchful of his actions, lest he labor in vain. I mean, that's scriptural as well. Uh, Paul says that. Each of the elders appreciates him various issues. Jack, Lord, like I do. Okay. All right. So what's next? Literally playing matchmaker here, bro. Find you a good Christian man, a good Christian woman. My wife is on her way home. The party pooper. Oh snap! I think she's about to be home. I had to tell her, just get the party pooper. That's me. But just had to tell her I'm recording, so she doesn't bust up in here. I sound like a total jerk. So I'm gonna paraphrase this one. Arsenios is older, and I think it's sick. Yeah, he falls ill, and someone's gonna take him to church. Dude, I need food. But so they get him on a bed, and somebody sees him in the bed. They're like, "This is Arsenios, the great Arsenios," and they say that he came from the riches of the palace, and now he lives, in humility. And the other guy used to be a shepherd, but he had a hard life, but now he lives more comfortable. And he says, "Father, forgive me, for I have sinned. Truly the way this man follows is the way of truth, for it leads to humility, while mine leads to comfort." And I know I kind of paraphrase that bad, but geez, it keep back and forth. But I encourage you to check it out because it is a strong message within that story. Another one: he who does not weep for himself here below will weep eternally hereafter. So it is impossible not to weep, either voluntarily or when compelled through suffering, which is basically like it's similar parallels Lazarus and the rich man. That Lazarus had the sores and the donks were licking him, and he suffered in this life, but he's in Abraham's bosom in the next life. And then the rich man had it all right. So yeah, he had it nice in this life, but in the next life he was in torment, and he's like, just a little cooling of my tongue, something like that. And so this, I should have read this at the beginning. So this is a quick little biography about Arsenius. He was 95 when he died. For 40 years he was employed in the palace of Theodosius the Great of divine memory, who was the father of the divine Arcadius and Honorius. Then he lived 40 years in Cetus, 10 years in Tro above Babylon, opposite Memphis, and 3 years at Canopus of Alexandria. So this is in Egypt, as far as I know. The last 2 years he returned to Tro, where he died. Well, I don't know where Tro is. Above Babylon. I think that's in the Middle East. You can Google it. The last 2 years he returned to Tro, where he died, finishing his course in peace and the fear of God. He was a good man, filled with the Holy Spirit and faith. And then the last part is a quote from Acts 11:24. And so this is actually the last one. And so I guess I should just read the whole thing. Some old men came one day to Abba Arsenius and insisted on seeing him. He received them. Then they asked him to say a word to them about those who live in solitude without seeing anyone. The old man said to them, as long as a young girl is living in her father's house, many young men wish to marry her, but when she has taken a husband, she is no longer pleasing to everyone. Despised by some, approved by others, she no longer enjoys the favor of former times when she lived a hidden life. So it is with the soul. From the day when it is shown to everyone, it is no longer able to satisfy everyone. And so you can see how there's actually, um, jeez, a continued narrative, I want to say, in the life of our seniors, or at least especially these sayings that, you know, I guess you could say overexposure to people um, affects your soul, your salvation, right? And so, like it says, flee man. Um, to flee man for your salvation. Flee man for your salvation. That it's better to be with God. And it even says, I believe it's in Thessalonians, to a quiet, uh, live a quiet life and work with your hands, right? Um, so okay, so that's the end of this. Thank you for tuning in. Um, that was some sayings of Abba Arsenius the Great. I encourage you to check him out. He's my patron saint. I'll be back around with other stuff. I don't know what I'm saying. Y'all stay blessed. Come back and see me.